Hi and welcome to our new edition of Get in a Habit with myself, David Finch, Sue Allsworth, and second time around for our guest today, which is Robyn. How you doing, Robyn? You all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you, David.
Good. Yeah, good to see you again.
I'm so excited to have Robyn back today.
Yeah.
It's put a big old smile on my face this morning. It was a lovely reason to get up this morning to see you, Robyn, I have to say.
Well, it's lovely to be here with both of you again.
Robyn, could I just say, Sue is lying completely because she's been up since silly o'clock watching the Olympics. So she didn't get up just to meet me and you. She got up to watch the Olympics. That's what she's been doing.
Actually, although we record this a week prior to when it's going out, it's officially my mum's birthday today. So I actually had to set my alarm to make sure that I got up early enough to see her and presents before coming on and recording.
Yeah.
Oh, happy birthday to your mum.
Wish your mum happy birthday.
I know, bless her, 71 today. Bless her little button. So, and it's their 50th wedding anniversary tomorrow.
Oh, mate.
Wow.
Brilliant.
And they've hardly had any of those 50 years alone without me. It's so sad.
I think that's golden, isn't it? Golden wedding anniversary. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah.
So talking of anniversaries, you've not got an anniversary as such, Robyn, but your business has done a little bit of a change slightly since probably we last spoke. So how long, talking of anniversaries, how long has your business in theory been running to start with?
Well, I set it up in 2013. So what's that, about 8 years?
Wow. And it's had a little bit of a makeover. You've given it a bit of a makeover lately. So tell us a little about its new makeover.
Well, it's just a bit of a tweak to try and bring everything that I offer more in line, to kind of streamline things, because I have 4 pillars that spell out the word wild. So where it was Equenergy Wellbeing naturally before, because everything is to do with nature in the work that I do, both our nature and the nature around us. But to bring in those 4 pillars and just to reflect them in everything that I do, because I've got various other things that use that acronym, I've made the business now Equenergy W.I.L.D Wellbeing.
I love that.
Right. So what does the WILD stand for then? I'm interested now, because if the 4 pillars spell out the word wild, come on, spill the beans, Robyn.
W is for wonder. When we can bring back that sense of childlike awe into our lives, and as so you will know, part of that for me is gratitude, practice of gratitude. And then I is intuition, because we have a head brain, a heart brain, and a gut brain. And the 3 of those are designed to work together in balance and communicating with each other. But so often we spend our time in our analytical head brain and neglecting maybe our heart brain and our gut brain. And so we can sometimes make decisions by second guessing ourselves or by trying to please other people, rather than by truly listening to our own instinct, our gut, our inner wisdom. So to try and bring that in more as well. L is for love yourself where you are, which is something that we often struggle with. So to look at that and to see ways that we can learn to love ourselves more through self-forgiveness, gratitude, all of these different practices. And D is dance with life, because I think when we can hold life lightly and remember that it's just a dance, then things come with much more grace when we think of it in those terms.
And a bit more light-hearted, because although I was talking to someone about this the other day, because she was saying, "Gosh, this is a really heavy session, Sue." And I said, "Yes, but go into it with a light heart, because you don't want even the good that we're doing or trying to help people do pull them down, because it's all got to be done with a playful heart. And as you say, dance. Your heart needs to dance with it all, even through the good, the bad, and the ugly, for want of a better phrase. There is a way of dancing through all of it, if you are conscious, I suppose, enough and love yourself enough, as you say, exactly where you are. It's not just loving ourselves when we're nice and in a sweet spot. It's loving all of ourselves, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or waiting, like we can sometimes wait. I'll be happy when,
Mm.
you know, things will be good when. I love myself when I've lost weight, or I've got this job, or I'm married, or whatever. But, you know, how are those things going to happen well, and that we're then happy with the result if we're not happy with ourselves as we are right now?
Well, it goes back to that. There is only one point in time that is ever of any importance to any of us, and it is now.
Yeah.
You can't literally do anything about the past except change how you think about it and feel about it now. You can't do anything about that in the future. So it really is that, is it Eckhart Tolle, I think, the power is now. And I love what you were saying about that intuition, because I think it's a misunderstood ability that we all have. But like any ability and skill, you have to learn to fine tune it, to listen to it, to understand how it works for you. Because the one thing I've learned with intuition is everyone, if I said to you, Dave, how do you feel and know your intuition? What would your answer be?
Oh, I don't know. And I think that goes back to something I wanted to pick up with Robyn about. You mentioned about a gut brain, a heart brain, and a head brain. And I think sometimes we go with our gut instinct. You know, it's like, oh, it feels right. And I think that's the thing about, you know, what you say about intuition. It feels right. If it feels right, that's okay. It's good. Do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
But it's also remembering that our gut brain sees things very much yes or no. It doesn't have a middle ground. It doesn't have shades of grey. So if we're in fear, if we've experienced a trauma or we're in stress, we will make choices from that perspective, because as well, the yes or no is life and death. The gut doesn't see anything else. It just sees this is life, this is death. So that's when it can be good to bring in the heart brain, where we're bringing in love and we're bringing in lightness and gentleness and all of these other really uplifting qualities, but also the analytical brain, because sometimes we need that and we need to weigh things up. So it's bringing all of those in, not just the gut, because we're not, you know, unless we're fully balanced, and in which case all of our brains are working together anyway, but not to rely too much on the gut if we're in fear or stress. Yes, so we can listen to it, and yes, we can back off from something if it's frightening us, but it's also about exploring what's going on behind that.
So would you say then, Robyn, if there's something happening in our life and an incident happens, whatever, you know, we want to do something, or we're a bit sort of thinking about it, should we do this, should we do that? Are you saying that maybe, like I mentioned earlier, we go with our gut feeling? Oh, my gut feeling says we should do this. But you hear other people, and this is why I love this, because our podcast is Get in the Habit, and lots of people go with a habit of like, oh, I'll go with my heart. My heart says I should do this, you know. And other people are very analytical, like you say, and they'll go, oh, let's weigh it all up. But should people then work together with those three brains, as you call them, and then, right, okay, so I'm going to go with my gut. What does my heart say now? And then, what is logical about this situation? Should I do it? Should I not? So how would that work in practice then?
I think it's very much an individual question. And like you were saying, Sue, about finding out how it feels for me. So I run workshops around what is your sense of what's right for you and what's wrong with you, for you, and getting in touch with that, but also bearing in mind that at times in your life, there might be things that you feel really drawn to or feel really pushed away from, but to listen to what's going on underneath that as well, and to explore what's going on underneath that, because there might be other reasons why you're feeling anxious about something, or you're feeling really drawn to something, if you're not fully in balance. Yeah. But you start to recognize that is my inner critic, That is, the little angel on the left shoulder, angel on the right shoulder, devil one side, angel one side. And you start to recognize, but also as you start to know, I'm not in balance at the moment. I need to go back and I need to work on that first. Then I can start making the decisions.
That's exactly where I was kind of at earlier this year, Robyn, when I had to pull out of everything. And going back to that intuition, we also, there's audio, there's, how people hear messages. Some people hear things, some people see things, some people smell things, some people, how we are open to that intuition, shall we say, it speaks very, very differently. Mine, it took me a long time to understand how mine talks to me, so that I know that, as you were saying, Robyn, when that authentic or intuition, gut instinct is talking, or whether it's actually coming from a place of fear or doubt. And that was actually really it confused me a long time over the years. If I look back and it's like, oh my God, it was talking to me all along. But you don't, you're not taught that that's actually something that is going to not physically, but energetically communicate with you and be there, as you say, as your safety net. It's your fight or flight response. So it's really interesting to take people on that journey, or it must be, to open them up to, like Dave, when I said to you, Dave, because I know that you're not so on this side of things, open, but not delved into it. So that's when I say to you,
you always say this, but I am. I'm quite open. I'm open. I'm an open book.
Okay. But if I say to you, how does your intuition talk to you? So Robyn, if I asked you the same question, how does your intuition talk to you? How have you figured out over years how yours talks to you?
For me, it's usually a sense of knowing, without knowing how I know or why I know, but just I know. And that's quite often what I would share with people, that it is a sense of knowing, whether it's something that you see and it just feels so right. There's a sense of a resonating somewhere. There's a sense of it just hits the sweet spot in some way.
Yeah, I can always remember, when you're younger and you've got boyfriend after boyfriend, fail after fail, what have you, and you asked your mum, how do you know? And my mum always gave me this advice: you'll just know. Well, I have to say, my mum's quite opinionated at times and has given advice, and that was the shortest and what I thought was the most useless piece of bleeping advice I have ever been given. And I never got it, because my mum, I've realized now, has innately got this. She's trusted her gut. She's someone that just has always, it's been there. Whereas I've had to find that trust within myself. And I look back now and I have to say, this is what I will say to people with trust in their instinct, their gut. You'll know when you know, and you won't know any time before that. But all I'll say is on the flip side of that, you do know when you don't know. So if you know when you don't know, and you know what that feeling is like, if you get something that isn't that feeling, then you're kind and feeling a lot more like, as you say, that sweet spot, then that's got to be your authentic heart, mind, brain, gut coming through.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people about when maybe in their life they have felt that something was really right. And, what did you feel? Yeah. How did that feel for you? So, like you were saying as well before, Sue, about being conscious. So when we are conscious, we're going to notice it, as opposed to just going through the mundane day-to-day routine and not being aware. It might, because sometimes it is so fleeting or so intangible in a sense when we're not used to it, that it can almost pass us by. So when we're being conscious and when we're tuning in, how does that feel? And even shades along the kind of continuum, does it feel closer to or further away from as well? You can kind of get a sense of that. And I used to work with somebody in Bristol who talked about moving away from fear and closer to love. So is your choice a fear-based choice? Is it a love-based choice? that can sometimes help people as well.
And you were saying, Dave, about that, having that connection. And I know within me, I'm like Robyn. I've realized mine's a knowing and I cannot explain it to anyone. I wouldn't expect anyone to understand it. But when I get that knowing, it's because, and that knowing that it is perfect, that moment in time anyway, it's because the mind, the heart, and the gut are completely aligned. That's when my knowing comes through. If they're not aligned, then I don't get that knowing feeling, because something is amiss. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's like a mismatch. There's a mismatch in what you're seeing, what you're feeling, you know, and there's something not matching up. So like you say, head, heart, gut, getting it right. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I know you always rib me about this. Oh, you're like far too common sense or something. I don't know really what you think of me, but there you are. But I am really quite open and you know, kind of really am. But what I like to do is question a lot. I like to question loads of things and think, okay, yeah, go on, tell me more about that. Tell me more about this. And I think that's what I like to do. You know, I mean, I like to ask more and find out more, and rather than go, oh yeah, put myself in a little box. Oh, I'm this person, because I'm not that person. I'm lots of different feelings and thoughts and everything else that goes with it that makes up.
None of us live in a box. I don't believe in boxes personally.
People put themselves in boxes, though, don't they?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
That is something that's always bugged me. But I think we find safety in that box, don't we? Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need that tribe. There's a lot of us, like, you know, we're quite individual souls, all three of us here, and don't profess to be one thing or another or affiliated to any particular sort of philosophy, because we find, as you say, we've all gone on big experience, but some people do need that tribe.
Because there's comfort. I think there's comfort in that. You know, it's like, oh, I belong to X, whatever X is, and I feel safe there, so I'm all right. I'm okay. You know, whereas you know, if people don't belong to anything, they feel a little bit lost. Some people, you know, they want to belong to something. And I think that's where I say people put themselves in those boxes, is because they want to feel that belonging and, you know, joining in with something bigger, you know. Whereas I'm quite happy not doing that, really. Oh, that sounds a bit weird. And I suppose maybe I'm putting myself in my own box of not being in that box. You know?
And sometimes we like defined parameters, don't we? Because then we feel safe. We're in a contained, so a box, a container, we feel contained. And then after a while, you might get a bit itchy and think, actually, it's not entirely comfortable. But for periods of time in our lives, it can feel nice to, yes, I belong. And yes, these are my parameters. And from there, I can then explore further.
So how do you've got different ways of connecting with people with your WILD, that you've got membership. Explain to us a little bit about how people can get in touch with their wonder, their intuition, and dance with life and loving themselves.
So most of what I do is one-to-one sessions with people who want to explore this for themselves. Maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, or they've got a physical condition that they just can't seem to get through, you know, chronic condition. So I work with them to explore that and to help them to create the life they long to lead and to get to a better state of physical well-being. Or I do workshops. I love working with people around this and helping them to have a deeper understanding of what's going on for them, how well-being kind of works and functions, and how our bodies respond to the environment, both outside of us and inside of us, in order to create well-being. I have, as you say, a membership which I run through Facebook. So there's a Facebook group where I post, and also I share meditations and journal prompt questions and self-care musings and things like that. And I have a free group that people can belong to as well, which is just a little community where I've got like-minded people who are on this journey of exploration of what does it mean to be me? Because I think that's what our purpose really is in this life, to be as me as we can be.
And to be as authentic as you can be. But what I will say with that is we then have to accept people with that authenticity, because that authenticity is not always going to look nice and in the right package. And I say that because, you know, we live in a world where there is good, bad and ugly. Partly because if we didn't, we wouldn't be learning on this plane. That the whole reason we're in this on this level is because there's a mixed bag, and it's how we learn, I think, on this level. If everything was too nice and all that perfectness, there wouldn't be this is where we grow to go up that level, so to speak, maybe. Who knows? But it is, you've got to play with it to grow and find out who you are and accept who you are. And we are not perfect. You know, there's that thing for striving for perfection. And I do love that 4 agreements. Always, you know, always do the best that you can. And what that means is not to be perfect. It means that in that given moment, no matter what is going on, depending on what is going on with your life, accept yourself, because, you know, and there are people that you have to say, okay, I accept that that's actually who they are. They can't, not going to change whatever their journey is. That's not our business, is it? So it is that acceptance, but knowing that it's not acceptance of everything that's nice. You've got to accept. Acceptance is, as you said, Robyn, before, it's that life or death, you know, that there's no yes, there's no no. You either accept or you don't. You either forgive or you don't. And that alignment that you were talking about.
And I think it relates into the love yourself where you are. It's understanding and with compassion, openness, curiosity. I love what you were saying there, David, about just asking questions all the time. I think that's fantastic. Being open, being curious, being compassionate, and mostly, I think compassion starts with ourselves, self-forgiveness. And when we can get to that point of, I understand that maybe I did something that I'm now not very proud of, but I did it because it was the best I could do at the time with the resources that I had access to at the time. The problem with my access to the resources might be that I was actually traumatized in some way, or experiencing stress, which to me, you know, big T trauma, little t trauma. And I'm responding from that. And I've just actually been watching Gabor Mate's new film, The Wisdom of Trauma, and then a series, Talks on Trauma series after that. And he's talking about how we're pretty much all traumatized, because if we're a baby and something happens, like I'm crying and mum doesn't come and pick me up, and if you are of a certain age, that was the teaching, leave your baby to cry, and they will stop in time. But why have they stopped? Because they've gone into shutdown. Or feed your baby every 4 hours. Babies don't read these books. So the baby is crying because they want connection. And Gabor says that we have 2 things that we need in life. We need attachment and we need authenticity. The baby's authenticity is to cry, to ask for that attachment, because the only way they know of attachment is actually physical attachment to mum or to caregiver. So if they're crying and they're being ignored and they stop crying, it's because they've pushed that down. They're giving up their authenticity in order to have the attachment. It's an either or, and you have to have attachment to live. So the authenticity gets compromised. A trauma. So if we've experienced that in any way in our lives and it hasn't then later been resolved, that's coming out in some way. And you think of all the people who experience anxiety, self-sabotage. So if I am self-sabotaging and not happy with what I'm doing, or I'm acting out and I suddenly, I get fearful and I shout at somebody, it comes out as anger because I'm getting defensive. Understanding why we've done that. It's not I'm a bad person. It's that, oh, that highlights the fact that there's something in me that isn't happy, that is not, it needs comfort, it needs support, it needs addressing. So compassion, in order to be able to do that, to understand why I'm doing it, and then to work on giving myself some love and healing so that I don't do that in the future, but also understanding that other people's responses may be from that point as well.
That brings in, I'm in my head, I've got don't take things personally, which is another of the 4 agreements. It's one of the biggest lessons. It's a hard lesson, but if you can get your head around it, and you've actually kind of explained it there to some degree, because quite often when someone is projecting anger out to someone, we take that personally, when actually it has got nothing to do with even to the point where, you know, if you're in an abusive relationship, maybe quite often it is not personal because it's you, it's because of who they are. And it would happen if it wasn't you, they'd find someone else, because it's not you personally. And that is where we take things so personally. But actually you kind of said that, you know, because it is an important one to learn that a lot of what goes out, emotions that we send out, are projections of our own stuff. And, you know, I've got nothing to do with the other person. They just happen to be a vessel, a container a receiver, shall we say, of our emotions that we
and they quite often come out on the ones closest to us, because we're behaved maybe out in public, and then when we come home, we've got all of that frustration that then comes out on our family.
And we feel safe with those close to us, maybe, for less fear of rejection. Because I know, you know, with me, my more heavy emotions they were very, very big, especially when I had hormones flowing through my body, and they were scary. And I knew that if they came out, it wasn't actually I knew that it wasn't to do with anything. Someone might have triggered something for me to get enraged, but it was not them. But I was very, very scared. My mum was my emotional punch bag, to be fair. I've always said this, throughout my 20s, she was my emotional punch bag. And thank God she was, because she saved a lot of people's lives.
Well, as it's your mum's birthday, you better go and hug her now and say, sorry for being an emotional punch bag, Mum. You know? Oh, dear.
We do go through those, because it's got to be let out somehow. Unless you know, and if you're living on your own, then you do need these groups that we've put to, you know, that with our help and our support. Because if you're on your own, where do you vent that? And the only place on your own you vent it, you internalize it, and that's when you start to hate yourself, isn't it? I think
it needs to be expressed in whatever way, and emotions are meant to be energy in motion. So being able to get them out rather than bottling them up, pushing them down, turning them inwards, it is healthier, even though it might not look very pretty, at least to start with.
Yeah, that's it. Robyn, it's been lovely chatting with you again, and we're sort of moving towards the end of our podcast now. Have you got a couple of pearls of wisdom that you can share with people? Maybe like, you know, habits that people can get into to help them. Maybe something from your W.I.L.D analogy. Is it an analogy? No, what's it called? Acronym. That's it. Well done. So yeah, something from your W.I.L.D acronym. You know, who knows?
Well, W.I.L.D is all about getting to know ourselves. So as you were talking about earlier, Sue, it would be to live as consciously as you can. So being open, being curious, having that compassion for yourself, forgiving yourself, learning as much as you possibly can to love yourself where you are right now, and to put self-care first. Because I know that we're often taught that we need to take care of other people and it's selfish to think of ourselves. But in terms of self-care, we fill ourselves up in order to be able to give through self-care. And we are at our best, most balanced, fullest self. So, you know, when we do that self-care. So that would be my top tips, to put self-care on the top of your list and to stay open, curious, and as we were talking about earlier, light-hearted. You know, keeping joy, keep on playing. If you can bring in play, whatever that means to you. So that might be getting out in nature, spending time with friends, but having fun rather than just going through life doing the motions and getting to the end of the week and the month and maybe the year and looking back and think, when did I have fun? When was that?
Yeah, maybe doing enjoying the dance.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That's it's a thing that I think a lot of us don't do enough of. To yeah, I know you do, Sue. Yeah.
Keep the inner child alive.
Yeah, people don't, do they? We kind of if we hear a great song, we feel, oh, this is a great song, but I can't dance around to it. And just enjoy it and dance and live. Brilliant. It's been great talking to you again, Robyn. I know we said it last time. I'm going to say it again. We really must connect together at some point. Things are getting easier now. We both sort of live in Wales, so why not? We get together at some point and let's have a chat, let's have a cuppa, and put the world to rights over a cup of tea. Yeah, lovely. So, do you want to wrap up?
Okay, Robyn, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Through my website is probably the best way. So that's equenergy.com, EQUENERGY.com. And on there you can find a links list, which will give you all my social media and contact details, and you can book in a Zoom chat with me. So yeah, that's probably the best way.
Brilliant. And thanks everyone who has been listening or watching this week. And once again, if you've got any habits or anything that you think would be important, want to share, contact me so we can get you on the next podcast. So I would say thanks, Robyn. Thank you so much. My heart definitely is open and authentic and full of yumminess today, knowing that you've been here. Dave, as always, my little podcast partner in crime, as they say. Yeah, take care everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.